Hello, everybody. Welcome back to a special episode of the Loan Officer Wealth Podcast. We have Nick Parent with us here today. Nick, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Chris. Appreciate it.
Well, we are honored to have you. I know you climbed the rankings this year to number 48 on the Scotsman's Guide. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. A
And
lot of hard work in that.
well, let's dive into what it is that you're doing to generate those incredible results. But before we do, I would like our listeners to know a little bit more about you and your background. How did you get into lending? Where did you get started? And how did you grow from there to where you are today?
Yeah, and it's funny, I get that question asked a lot from folk getting into the industry. My name's Nick Parent again, owner and broker, active loan officer still at Vermont Mortgage Company. We're a smaller little shop in the state of Vermont, but happy to say we've been the number one broker in the state for the last 5 years, and a lot of hard work that goes into that to be able to say that. I got into the industry in 2005. So it was sort of after the refi booms of '01, '02, where everyone was refinancing at that time into the low rates of fives, I think in that range, 6%. So I came into a time where refis were sort of drying up. And out of the gate, I saw right away the benefit of being a purchase guy. So I would say, we've done plenty of refis, especially over the last few years, but I've always had my business driven on purchase business. And I think by being focused on purchase business, I've always seen my volume stay steady and actually continue to grow year after year, where other friends or affiliates that I know in the industry, if they're refi driven, their business definitely had a lot of more ups and downs than mine did. So
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, I always consider the refinance business to be the cherry on top. It's just the bonus that you have available to you when that market cycle comes, because it's just good database management.
yeah, and there was almost too many bonuses coming over the last couple of years. But yeah, I always say that exactly, that refis, I look at them as bonuses. If you took care of that client, they're going to come back to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So in looking at being purchase focused in today's market, I know there's a lot of people that are saying, oh, I know I should be going out and networking with realtors, but realtors don't have any business to send me right now. What are you seeing in today's marketplace, and how would you respond to that?
It's interesting. I don't know when this is going to air, but we're at the end of 2023, December. And I'm proud to say my little company, I actually think we're going to be up about 10 to 15% from last year. And I don't think there's many mortgage companies actually saying that right now in this climate, so we're very proud of that. I think, it's been a good year. Now, it's been a hard year. We've had to work hard for these clients and had to sharpen up. I think I saw an interview you did with Mr. Twan, was it?
Yes.
The
Yep.
top guy in the country. And he hit it right on. I think there's always opportunity, even in different markets. The other thing, my company, like I said, is a small Vermont-based company. We're only licensed in the state of Vermont.
Wow.
And our loan amounts tend to be smaller than other marketplaces like California or Florida. I feel not that Vermont is bulletproofed, but I feel Vermont, especially with the pandemic, has been a safe haven for folks. And we still have very much a lot of remote workers that are coming to the state. So it seems like New England, maybe Vermont in particular, we don't have as much ups and downs in the market, and there's still very much people trying to move here. And again, because I'm a purchase guy, my business hasn't really suffered this year at all. So
That is absolutely incredible. So, being the number one lender in Vermont, do you have a statewide marketing campaign and focus? Are you all across the state? What does that look like?
yeah, and just a correction, the number one broker, there is
Sorry.
another bank in town that is the number one credit union. So the credit unions in my area, and they're good credit unions, but they have a good, further reach of client database and depository people coming in. So they definitely, I'm number two to them, which I'm happy being number two. It's not a bad place to be. But to get back to your question, I was actually at a holiday party last night in central Vermont. I'm going to another one, a realtor holiday party down in Southern Vermont. So yeah, we do, the name of my company is Vermont Mortgage Company, and we definitely try to service the whole state. So with that, there's 9 different realtor boards that we're members of that we actively participate in, and that's all throughout the state. So,
got it. Okay. So with the volume that you're producing, 10 to 15% up this year, mainly purchase business, what are you doing in today's marketplace to, well, first off, how much of that volume would you say comes from your database? How much of that volume comes from realtors? And then what's the rest of it made up of?
yeah, it's funny. I think I shouldn't say this probably. I kind of have a general idea of where my business comes from. I feel when I was earlier in my career, admittedly, I was better off at setting goals and tracking numbers and percentages. And definitely my loan officers now, as they're getting in the industry, that's what they're doing. I think through the pandemic, I probably went to the wayside with the tracking of everything. But I would have to say, if I were to look, I'm 100% confident that as I've grown, definitely more than 50% is still probably my realtor and attorney and partner, realtor referrals. And then as I've grown, definitely I still market and connect with my database. So I would say that's probably 30% of my business, which is, that's increased throughout the years as I get more of a database. And then with my name, if you were to type in Vermont Mortgage, you're going to find my company. I think I have about 60% web presence in the state of Vermont.
Wow.
So when I started the company, I was shocked that the name wasn't taken. And, again, it's a smaller market, but it's not bad being number 2 in a small market. It's still a very successful company.
Yep. And so I'm assuming that, 711 5-star ratings and reviews on Google, you're getting inbound phone calls from Google on a pretty regular basis.
We do. Yeah. Yeah.
What is the quality of that type of lead compared to, say, a purchase lead? Or, like, for maybe a better way to frame that question for listeners, there's so many people out there that are trying to keep their volumes the same by just purchasing leads from, like, there's all different sources out there, Zillow, Boomtown, Facebook, and like, you name it, you can go buy leads from it. My opinion is, as soon as you buy a lead, you have to go chase it.
Yep.
And we have a product using AI that gets mortgage companies ranked on the front page of Google. We work with 2 people per market. We get them in the map placement. We help them build up their ratings and reviews, much like people are trying to replicate what you've done with the ratings and reviews. So what is your feedback on the quality of the phone calls that come in from people that see you on Google, read the ratings and reviews, and then call into the business?
Yeah. And, I guess I'll say I've never purchased leads as far as trigger leads.
Yes.
I will say I do participate with partner referrals, and I do Zillow and realtor.com. And mainly I do that to support my agents and to give back to them. I think that solidifies our relationship if I'm helping them, support them, get leads in. But I would say for me, maybe for every 50 Zillow leads, maybe 1 or 2 are actually panning out. I've often found that they're maybe on their computer, it's a Sunday, maybe they're having breakfast and they're just, starting their search. So I call those very cold leads, those Zillow, and we do follow up with them, but they're not as fruitful. What's nice about having, we're proud to say we're the #1 reviewed mortgage company in the state as well. And it's pretty simple to do that. Every client we close, we ask them, hey, can you give us a review? To me, that's a very basic thing that anyone can start doing. And it's funny because I think you said we're up around 700. I think the next guy might be at 50. So It's just interesting to me, especially my local credit union that probably should have thousands. I think they're, you can't even find them online. So it's a very basic thing that we just had a good experience with our client and they're willing to give us a good review on Google. So when those leads are calling us, it's already setting the stage that, they've seen what our client said. And none of us here are good at sales, to be honest. We come more from an education background.
Yep.
So we don't really believe in selling people, even though that's what we're doing. But it's more of being a resource to our clients and an education background. And so very often when a client's asking me to dance, which they still ask me, why should we use your company? I'll let them know we have good service, good products. and then I'll direct them to Google and let our clients, our past clients, kind of be our cheerleaders for us. So in
Yes.
that spot, that it just reiterates or solidifies that we are a good, solid company based from what our clients are saying directly.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I mean, what a great opportunity for everybody listening to lean in on 5-star ratings and reviews. Ask for
Yeah.
the review before the deal closes. Hey, can I count on you at once we fund that you're going to leave me a 5-star rating and review? And we're seeing a lot of people that are, right before closing asking for
Yeah.
that 5-star rating and review because it is hard to get people to pay attention and leave the review
Yeah.
after.
It
Super.
seems like, Chris, not to interrupt, but again, it's a simple thing that someone can do that doesn't cost money and get you on the platform and the internet. But found the sweet spot is right after closing. They're still very excited. They got the excitement from the new home, but before the first mortgage payment is when I usually like to ask for the review. So
That's the perfect timing.
yeah.
From a quality perspective, because it's rare that I get to speak to somebody that has so much experience with Zillow leads or those types of leads. Do you have a rough idea of how many of the inbound calls from Google that you get that actually fund?
I do not, unfortunately, no. I know I'm very grateful that our phone rings quite often from Google alone. And to be honest, my business isn't really off that business.
Right.
That's really helped my loan officers grow their business. I very rarely answer the phone these days, the main line. So all my business at this point is direct referrals or past client referrals for the most part.
That is
So I
amazing.
think
And
I think my crew tracks those, but I couldn't tell you the percentage off the top of my head.
that is no problem at all, and incredibly generous of you to take the low-hanging fruit and give it to your team and use it to build that aspect of it. That's incredible to see as a leader. That's amazing.
Yeah, yep. Oh, and that's a lot of my philosophy is putting other people first. I think we live in a me world, and I don't mean that disrespectful, but when the client's calling, it's always been in my head. If you make it about them, you make it about your referral partners, you make it about getting the job done and doing a good job. At the end of the day, you're going to be winning if you take care of people and always have that mindset.
Yeah, I could not agree more. Absolutely. And so that's a great transition to realtors. I mean, realtors being referral partners, I should say, a huge
Yeah.
part of the business, mainly realtors. So what are you doing to build new relationships with new realtors, and how do you nurture the existing relationships that you have so that you keep them long term?
I think it really comes out, and again, the longer you do this, the easier maybe it feels. But for years, when I was at my previous company before I started my own brokerage shop, I was typically there 2 hours before anyone else, and typically 2 hours there whenever anyone else left. And I just started seeing that agents, even if I weren't involved in their deals, they always looked at me as a resource. And I always led with that. Hey, I'm always happy to be a resource, even if I'm not involved in the transaction. And that saying that genuine script over and over just kind of stuck. And I'm kind of known as that guy that they can always bounce things off. And again, whether I'm involved or not, it's just about doing the right thing. And hopefully they'll remember that the next time. So that definitely takes time. But I know in the beginning, and not everyone wants to work as much as sometimes it takes to get there. But I know in the beginning, in my mid 20s, I was definitely outworking most of the people around me, and the agents knew that. I just started getting that reputation, and then usually when you're in with a bigger firm, your name starts getting passed around more, and that just continues to grow. I would say I probably drive my wife and daughter crazy, but usually if I'm in my car, there's never really a moment where I'm not on the phone, talking to my referral partners, just checking in with them. It's always easier too when you have deals going to always keep spinning those deals to other deals.
Yep.
So that sort of makes it, a little bit easier at times. You have things to talk about. But I'm constantly always calling people and just staying in front of them. So whether that's having lunch with them, a cocktail, or just a phone call checking in for a few minutes. Hey, how you doing? What can I do to help?
That's awesome. Now, it sounds like that's an always on process for you. Do you have a process where there's like theme days within the business, or it's like, okay, Tuesdays from 9 until noon, I call referral partners? Is there a structure to it, or is it just an everyday process for you?
It's funny because I'm a big fan of Todd Duncan. I
Yes.
met Todd early on in my career in 2005 in California. And at that time, Todd Duncan, Barry Habib, and they still are in my world, but they were like rock stars in the mortgage industry, and they still are. So a lot of what I do, I think Todd has his trusted sales or his trusted interview, how he does things. I absorbed all of that in the beginning, and that's kind of how I've always treated my clients. Um, where I fall is I don't have a set schedule, and I know Todd is very good about time management, and you should do this. I would say I'm just always actively, being mindful of talking to folks. And I always tell my crew, as long as you're talking to people, you're always getting business in from some source.
Yeah.
It seems like I might be focusing here one day, but then this seed over here is growing. So I often talk to my loan officers about it's always about planting seeds. And you just never know when they're going to grow and sprout, but you always just keep that rolling.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Nick, it's funny that you mentioned that because I'm such a believer in systems and technology. And a lot what you're doing and how you've built such an incredible business is by focusing on the fundamentals of relationships, which is truly what is going to grow mortgage business. It doesn't matter how much AI takes over. It doesn't matter all of those things. Yes, there will be huge leaps forwards in processing, right?
Yeah.
We are in a relationship business. As a loan officer,
Yeah.
as somebody who owns a mortgage company, ultimately we're building relationships. And that's where we can't be replaced. The more relationships you have, the more volume you can do. But what we've leveraged AI to do is to put a system and process to what it is that you do. So on Mondays, your CRM automatically turns on, powered by AI. It has the list of contacts that it's reaching out to that day, say pre-approvals. And it's like on Tuesday, the AI machine turns on, goes through the pre-approval process, but any conversations that happen are actually taken care of by the AI using your scripts, information that
Hmm.
you've already put into it, so that those conversations are happening without you having to be on the phone in the car or that sort of thing. But you're getting notifications and watching the conversations. So if
Hmm.
you see a partner that you want to, hey, do you want to go, can I take you out for coffee or that sort of thing, that conversation ends up happening, you can pop in. And what it allows you to do is just stay leveraged, but also disciplined with the process. And I think for our listeners, and even for us here in the conversation, Nick, it's a very good example of how in the future, AI powered mortgage professionals like yourself are just going to be able to do even more at scale. But really what we're doing is we're just scaling the fundamentals of what works in the mortgage business.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so speaking to that, I'm interested about your onboarding process. So when you take an application from somebody, do you look to turn that into other professional referral relationships? You mentioned you were also getting referrals from attorneys. So
Hmm.
when you get a new application, are you saying, hey, like, do you have an attorney? Do you have a financial advisor? Are you using those to leverage other types of professional referral relationships?
We do on some level. It's even funny on the database, and I might be a little bit too old school, but I've always wanted to respect my client's data.
Oh yeah.
So even when I do believe in snail mail, even, and when I do it, I don't do it, I don't think I'm the guy that does things as frequently as someone should be, maybe. But I feel when I do reach out to my database or drop a snail mail, it's interesting. I get a greater response back from people because I don't become their daily junk email. I think they like that I'm not pegging them with too much information. So when I do speak or they get a piece of mail with my logo on it, they open it and they actually read it because I don't peg them with overflow, right? Um, with that being said, I do have financial partners, advisors that I do refer to. So depending, I'll always be listening for those opportunities to refer back to people. The attorney is always a good one. And then also when we get a purchase and sales agreement, very often we might be hitting up the listing agent, introducing ourselves to them. I've stopped this campaign, but back in the day, we used to reach out to the sellers directly, and that actually used to get us business as well. And then the other interesting part is that we try to attend all of our closings in person, which is kind of I don't know if many banks do that anymore. I actually just came from one this morning. And it's interesting. I've actually gotten quite a bit of business just from going to closings. So I've gotten to know the sellers that way. Maybe they're buying in a few months. They're not happy with their loan officer. They might switch to me. But that also reinforces my relationships with realtors on both sides, listing agent and buyer's agent, as well as that attorney as well. So I think it takes an hour out of my day to go to closings. And sometimes when I have 10 in a day, it makes it challenging. But I do really still believe in the benefit of that because I see direct business by still doing that. And again, it's just another seed or an opportunity to get in front of people that are able to send business back to me.
That is incredible. Amazing. So, Nick, being it an interesting market right now, what is your forecast for the future? What do you think is coming? What do you think loan officers need to be focused on right now in their businesses?
Yeah, I went through the mortgage crash of 08, 09. That was some tight times. December of 08 was really brutal. I remember that time period. I always think it's about the fundamentals in this job. I have a lot of new realtors that will reach out to me. Hey, Nick, we know you're successful. How did you get there? I don't think, at least for me, nothing comes overnight. It's been a lot of hard work, but it really comes down to just treating people right, doing best by them. It helps that we have a good rate. I think Tuan was talking about having good pricing, and I would agree with that, especially in the last year. It's really been rate sensitive. So having a good product, giving good service, and even when I'm talking to clients, I start off with just a basic conversation like this. We don't start talking about socials or running credit. I just want to get to know them and where they're at, and just an interview like Todd Duncan talks about. And by doing that, you just get to know someone. It creates a genuine relationship. And I just feel if there's a relationship with that trust, it's just an easier way to do business. So right now, I'm coaching these guys. We're seeing a lot of people jump ships, go to different companies. I find when things get tight, people try to create these magic bullets. I know they were talking about 3-2-1 buy downs at the beginning of the year. If you don't have good adjustables, you're going to be out of the market. I really think it's always about the fundamentals of working hard, keeping your head down. And I think when it tends to get slower, we find that people don't answer their phones. So I'm not sure why, but I'm getting a lot of calls from people. Oh, you picked up your phone. I've been waiting to hear back from my bank for 7 days, and it's not busy, right? It's not that busy. No one should be waiting for 7 days for a call back. So I think it's always the fundamentals of just working hard, communicating, and when that phone does ring, do the job and get back to people. I think it gets overthought. I'm not sure if there's a magic bullet, at least that I would have. I think it's just always the fundamentals of that relationship and taking care of people.
Yep, I could not agree more. We can't change the rates, can't change the market cycles, but man, we can change our mindset and we can change our daily activities. And you got to be out there every day giving 100% because that's truly what generates that book of business in the future. Because as the market turns, you're the one that's going to get the lion's share of that business because you're the one that's been there doing the business the whole time. So congratulations.
And I think that's it. When you're focused on purchases all the time, the people that are now trying to chase the purchases, well, I've been here for years. They know I'm solid and I'm not going anywhere. Where, all of a sudden loan officers are coming out that were chasing refis, and now they're trying to get realtor business, and, they can just see through it basically,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Nick, thank you for being so generous with your time and with your knowledge. Where do people go to find out more about you?
Yeah, well, again, my name's pretty easy, but if you type in Vermont Mortgage, you'll find me. But the name of my company is vermontmortgagecompany.com.
That is fantastic. Well, again, thank you so much for being on the show. To all of our listeners, thank you for listening. Make sure you share this with another professional in the mortgage industry because a rising tide rises all ships, and we all need excellent information like the stuff that Nick has shared with us today. So, Nick, again, thank you for being on the show. And everybody, we'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you, Chris.